The best things happen outdoors, and they start at Gander RV and Outdoors. Did you know that you can get a fifth wheel that sleeps 6 for only $194 a month? To learn more, visit GanderRV.com today.
Sean Parr with Tiffany Remington, and of course, we're here for our partner pick, and I love this part of the program. We get a chance to catch up with some of our partners, get a chance to know them a little bit better, and we have got an amazing team that we're going to talk to. When I say team, I mean she has 5 children, an amazing husband, and Preeti Harbuk of the local Passport family. It is so good to talk to you. How are you, by the way?
Hi. Great. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. First of all, you're relatively new to RVing, and that's what this is all about, getting to know the lifestyle and, you know, some of the reasons why you and your family chose RVing within the last year. Why don't you tell everybody and fill us in on why you chose to do that?
Absolutely. So we purchased our first RV about 8 months ago. So shortly after the pandemic started. So we are based in California in the Bay Area. And both my parents and my husband's parents live on the East Coast. So we lived on the East Coast for years, super close to them. And they are all really high risk. 3 out of 4 of them actually have cancer. And they're all doing great, but we wanted to keep them doing great.
Sure.
So my husband's parents hadn't even met our youngest baby, our 5th. And so we needed to find a way to be able to go out and see them. So we figured RVing was the safest way to be able to do that. So we could all quarantine in our little box and get out to spend some time with family.
And how long did it kind of take you to put this plan together and decide to jump into an RV? Was it something that was thought out for a few months, something that was thought out in a week or a few days?
You know, we really kind of jumped into it within a few weeks. We thought about the idea and then we did a lot of research in a few weeks to see if we could make it safe for our kids. So that was our biggest concern because we had heard mixed things with safety with kids and RVs. And so we did tons and tons of research, talked to lots of experts to see if we could do it safely. And then we purchased it within probably a month after deciding to do that.
Wow.
And after that, we got going within a few days, got out to them in a week. And then we ended up spending about 4 months on the road after that.
That's incredible.
That's
and I mean,
so
you took your
amazing.
5 kids, and you're the reason, by the way, there's so many incredible people that have decided this year, obviously because of COVID, and the reason you just explained, to maybe get into it and start it and take their kids out. And instead of homeschooling them and keeping them there, to get on the road with the Wi-Fi that we have and the technology that we have today, homeschool them and let them see what they're learning about and travel across the country. So you said it took you, a week to get across the country? What was that trip like with 5 kids?
You know, that felt it just felt so new to us at the time because that was our first time ever doing the RV thing.
Sure.
My husband had RV'd with his family growing up. I had never even set foot inside an RV before, so it was all brand new to us.
I love it.
He was young when they did it, so he wasn't, taking care of the water and the fill-ups and, all of that. So it all just felt so new and a little bit overwhelming, honestly. But then as we settled into it, we got into a great rhythm and we just kept extending it because we loved the experience so much.
Exactly. And I know we talk about this all the time, like just getting started is probably the scariest thing. And then once you start kind of get going, pushing all the buttons, figuring how things work, it becomes less intimidating. Yes, it's very overwhelming in the beginning, but anything new that you try in life is probably very overwhelming.
Oh, yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think when you're able to make it like a family kind of affair to figure things out, it brings you a lot closer together, huh?
Definitely, yeah. Everyone sort of took on their own roles and jobs, and now when we get back in the RV for weekend trips or for, short jaunts, it feels a lot more comfortable because everyone knows what to expect and how to jump in.
Yeah, we're talking to Preeti Harbuk of the local Passport family. And what do you wish? Because you said that you guys planned it, you talked with your husband about it, you put this awesome plan together. But what do you wish you knew before you actually jumped in and bought that Class C before you got started? What do you wish you knew?
I wish I knew that we would really love it because we waffled a lot. We felt so intimidated by it, especially for me. My family had never done anything like this before. There aren't a lot of families of color in the RV community yet, and that's something we really try to help change. And so I think it felt especially intimidating to me because I wasn't seeing other people like me doing things like this. So it felt uncomfortable. It felt new. I didn't know what to expect. And I wish I had known that it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be, and that we would be able to figure it out, and that it would really bring our family closer together.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we preach a lot, and we talk about this, Tiffany, a lot, is when we're out on the road and we're out in the campgrounds, all of a sudden, hey, guess what, Preeti? You're part of this amazing family of RVers, and if you have a question, if you need anything, people are right there to jump in and take care of it for you or show you how it's done.
Absolutely. There's so many people who are willing to give of their knowledge and their experience, and we found the community to be really friendly and welcoming.
Absolutely. And I really love the fact that you were talking about just representation in general, because when Caleb and I joined the community about 3 years ago, I felt the same exact way. And I love the fact that there are people like your family and other families that are really kind of breaking the mold and really showing, that traveling and being outdoors, there's a whole new place for people of color. And I think that's really, really special. And I want to thank you for putting all of your work and also just sharing your adventures with everyone out there. And I think we were reading you went to how many countries already with your kids, and just in general, we were looking at it and we're like, this is insane. Over 60.
Yeah, I've personally been to 62, I think, countries. And with kids, we've been to 43.
That's amazing. Now, back to the RV, though. Why? Because we've seen the pictures, and we were both just gawking all the time. And if you're not following Preeti and her family, you certainly should. It's really simple. Just look up Local Passport Family. You can Google them, and their pictures will come up on Instagram and Facebook. And why the Class C? What made you guys go towards the Class C?
Yeah, absolutely. So we own a 2007 minivan that has almost 200,000 miles on it. So
wow.
it's a great car for us, but it was not prepared to pull a trailer or something across the country. So we knew that and we weren't prepared to buy a new car in addition to buying some sort of RV or trailer. So we knew that we needed something that we could drive in on its own that wouldn't need to be pulled. So that was the first consideration. Secondly, a Class C felt more comfortable and it felt safer with kids. There's been more safety testing done with Class Cs, especially in the front of the cab. And so that was something that we personally felt more comfortable with kids. So we knew that we could install car seats safely, that we could install them to the frame. And so we did a lot of research around that. And finally, we have 7 people in our family, so we needed a vehicle that could actually house and sleep all of us.
Yeah.
No, I was actually just talking to Caleb because we're expecting our first.
Yes, they are.
And we are so excited. And we were talking about just traveling in a Class C and the car seats and everything. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Can you kind of give us a little visual on like how all the kids sit and how they're all buckled in? Because I know that's something that is a big concern for families out there, how to travel safely and in these motorhomes, because they're not like the trucks where you have for the fifth wheels or the trailers.
Absolutely. So I will start out by saying I am not a CPST, a certified car seat technician.
Totally.
However, I did talk to about 5 different ones. So we did a lot of research into what we found safe. Mm-hmm. So the biggest consideration is being able to actually buckle the car seats in and have them attached to the metal frame of the RV. Mm-hmm. So that's really important. And they need to all be tethered. So you can't use a booster seat, for instance, in an RV because we only have lap belts in our RV and we don't have shoulder belts. And so you need some sort of seat that you can use with just a lap belt. So that was a big consideration for us. I have a number of blog posts actually that talk about how we went through the whole process of figuring out which RV would work with the seats, which seats would work in the RV, how to install them safely, and the conversations that I had with the CPSTs. Of course, it's not without risk, but we felt like we were really able to minimize the risk as much as possible. So we felt really comfortable. And we tend to be really conservative with car seat safety. My 10-year-old is still in a harness. My 8-year-old is still in a 5-point harness in our normal minivan. So we tend to be really conservative with car seat safety. And we felt really comfortable with what we were able to get to.
Nice. I love that. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and say it on behalf of everybody that's tuning in right now. Preeti, you don't look like you're old enough to have 5 kids, number one. But now, I want to know from a kid's perspective, mom and dad got the Class C. That first week, you're going to go see grandma and grandpa across the country. And the kids what are they thinking? What's going through their mind? Are they excited? Are they nervous? What's going on with that?
Oh, they were over the moon excited. Yeah, they were thrilled. The idea of sleeping in a moving vehicle and like up in the cab in the bunk above the cab for my two oldest, they just thought it was so fun. They loved the whole like setup process of putting the beds together and, being able to jump right out the door and go explore.
I love that so much. And then do you feel like there's been a lot more closeness with the kids being in a little bit of a smaller space, or do you still kind of like the bigger house and they're able to have their own space? Like what is the environment like being in a house versus a motor home?
For sure. I mean, we personally love having a home base, but absolutely the RV has brought us closer together. And that's true not just being in the RV, but while we are RVing. Because when you're RVing, you're not just staying in your RV all the time. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, that people think, oh, I'm going to be stuck in this tiny space with my family for however many days on end. And no, the truth of it is when you're RVing, you're mostly outside of the RV. When we're in the RV, we're eating or we're sleeping, or, we're not spending a ton of time just hanging out inside this little box. It's a way for us to be able to spend more time outdoors together. And I think that's the biggest magic of it. It helps us connect through doing all these other experiences, through hiking together, through exploring nature together, to being out and about.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's like having an ever-changing backyard.
And I love the picture that you paint there, going to the campground for the first time with the kids. And all right, who's going to get the firewood? And all right, who's going to do this? We got to build the rock, and we've got to put the rocks out because we're going to build a pit. And we're going to do that. And everybody has their own project. And that's what I see with 5 kids, because you're right. When you're in that kind of a space, it can get a little crazy. And I'm sure the kids, I'm giddy right now with excitement thinking about you and the 5 kids. But from a husband's perspective, I'll ask you, Mom, how hard was that trying to keep them under control? Who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy in the RV?
I would say we probably take turns. My husband does more of the like RV specific stuff, and then I'll manage, some more of the kid stuff, so absolutely it gets crazy. There is no getting around that because it always gets crazy with 5 kids, with
Sure.
any kids, frankly. I mean, any parent knows that there will be times of chaos and craziness, whether you have 1 child or 7 children, and I feel like that's just inherent in parenthood. But this feels like an amazing way for us to kind of channel that into something really connective and fun for the whole family.
I love it.
Can you explain a little bit more of like your Class C, like give a little description with your family of 7, how big is it, how many slides, just so people can also get an idea, if they have kids and they're interested and they're first timers as well, to look in what kind of model.
Absolutely. So we do not have any slides in ours. It's a 29-foot Class C. And it sleeps 7. So we have the bed in the back. So my husband and I, Dan and I, sleep back there. When our baby was tiny, we had a little bassinet for her that fit right next to our bed, which is perfect. So we could, we had easy access to her. So that was great. And then, so now we have a pack and play for her that we just set up in the front area with the other kids now that she's a little bit bigger. My 2 oldest, my 10-year-old and my 8-year-old, they sleep up in the bunk above the cab.
Nice.
And we just have them sleep kind of head in so that they can't roll off the edge. Just a little safety precaution. And then my 2 middle ones, so my 6-year-old and my 3-year-old, we set up the beds for them kind of in the middle of the RV that, are where the seating area are, the bench seat and the dinette table.
Love that.
That's incredible. These smaller rigs, 29 feet is, I guess, considered a little bit smaller, can pack a punch. You have a family of 7.
No slide outs.
And you make it work. And I think that's absolutely incredible. And again, you're traveling across the country, which is, a lot of miles to put in. And I think that's so awesome that you were able to make that all work for you.
Yeah, and Preeti,
16,000 miles last summer. So
15,000 miles is a long way to go in a summertime. And I'm sure that when you got the Class C and you guys decided to hit the road, that it was a learn as you go experience. Walk us through what it was like the first couple of trips and what you learned that you could pass on to other people.
Absolutely. I would say when we first started out, it just felt so intimidating. We didn't know how to we didn't know that hooking up the water would actually be really easy. It's really just hooking up a hose. It's no big deal. Even things like that felt really intimidating to me. I wish I had known that we wouldn't need to fill water or dump nearly as often as we thought we would, and that boondocking is a really great option, especially for families that are trying to save money. That's been awesome. And so it doesn't necessarily have to involve paying $80 a night for a campground. There are lots of other options where you don't have to fill up every night. You don't have to dump every night. So I wish I'd known more about the actual logistics of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I think our first 2 months, we were doing the same thing. We were dumping our tanks almost every day. We're like, yeah, I think it's full. And then Caleb would look at the sensor. He's like, no, it still says empty. I'm like, we should dump it anyway. I think that's what we need to do. So I totally hear you on that. But again, that's the fun of it, of learning all of these things and what works for you. Some people actually do like to dump on the daily, which is totally fine.
Yeah,
but
totally
you're right.
Fine.
Yeah, you're totally right. You can it lasts a lot longer than you think that it is. Another question that I have is, okay, now that you've immersed yourself in almost a year of RVing, what are some of the benefits that you've seen for your family that this new lifestyle that you've taken on?
Absolutely. I mean, as we were discussing earlier, family connection is huge. It allows us to explore nature in a way that we never could before. Because before, it felt really cost prohibitive to be able to take all of these trips and to go and pay for, a hotel or Airbnb, go pay for our experiences, for the food, for the transportation. And now we feel like, okay, we can jump in. And now that we've paid for the RV, that was a big benefit of actually buying the RV for us, because now we have it, we own it, we can go whenever we want, and we're basically paying the cost of gas to be able to go explore in all these incredible places. We can cook our food in there, so it's not costing us more there. We don't have to pay for our accommodations. So it really allows us access to so many of these incredible public lands. And again, especially as a family of color, it allows us to be able to explore these incredible beauties around the earth and around our country in a safe way that we don't feel like we're putting ourselves at risk or putting other people at risk. And it allows us more of that flexibility and access that felt really prohibitive before.
Yeah, and that's the hard part too, is you've touched on this several times throughout our conversation here today, is that things you thought you expected it to be more difficult than it was. Thought it would be a bigger hassle than it was. Wasn't quite sure if we should, empty that every time. But now that you have had a chance to get out and see, I'm sure each of your children have their own favorite adventure that you guys have been on.
For sure.
Give us paint that picture for us, a couple of adventures that you guys tried in the beginning that you really wanted to do. I know you were on your way across the country to see the in-laws and the parents, but what were some of the adventures that you hit early on that you were like, wow, this is 10 times better than we thought it was?
Absolutely. So as we left Virginia, where my parents live, and started making our way slowly back to California, we thought we might hit a few national parks on the way home. We were like, okay, maybe we'll do one or two. And then we started out by going to Cuyahoga Valley in Ohio and then Indiana Dunes. And both of those, we were like, wow, this is incredible to be able to have the flexibility to see all of these incredible places. I tend to be a super type A planner. So for all of our travels and adventures before, I have all of the transportation figured out, all of the lodging, every day is sort of planned out to the T before we left on the trip. Because with 5 kids especially, we didn't feel like we could have that flexibility. We didn't feel like we could kind of play it by ear. But the RV allowed us that option. It allowed us to have that flexibility without feeling stressed that we're not going to have a place to stay, or, we're not going to be able to get a flight. We have that flexibility because we always have our transportation with us. We always have our food with us. We have our lodging with us. So it gives us that flexibility. So as we saw those first couple of parks, we're like, wow, this is a pretty amazing thing. Maybe we'll pop down and see some other places. So we had stopped to see some family in St. Louis, and it was there that it kind of turned, where we're like, maybe we'll extend this a little bit more than we realized. And we figured that we were not that far from Big Bend in Texas, which it is still pretty far, actually, I will warn you. But
I was going to say, wait a minute.
But Big Bend isn't really close to anything at all.
Exactly.
So we're like, well, we're not going to get much closer than that anyway. So let's go check out Big Bend. So we drove all the way down to Big Bend in Texas, right on the Mexico border, explored there, and it was incredible. Then we worked our way up to White Sands in New Mexico, up through Colorado, went up to Yellowstone and the Tetons, kind of circled back around. So just so many incredible and diverse places that we have in our country that we didn't feel like we could just take off to before.
I love that.
I can definitely highlight on being the planner as well. I'm normally like, we're here. This time we have 3 minutes to transition. I hear you on that. But no, I love the fact that you say it does give you this opportunity to have so much more flexibility, and it's a lot less stressful. As Caleb and I were traveling across the country as well, we're like, well, if we get tired, we'll just pull over and we can sleep. Yeah. We don't have to force ourselves to drive to get to a specific destination, a specific hotel or wherever, because we booked it for that night. And so I feel there is so much more freedom mentally and emotionally while you're traveling as well, because you're not, again, adhered to this tight schedule that, again, I'm very used to putting together.
Absolutely. And I feel like it saves so much time and energy too, because you're not unpacking and repacking every day or every few days, you know? I feel like, especially with kids, there's always this big like kerfuffle of being like, did everyone pack up their stuff? We bring in everything into the Airbnb that we need? Did we pack up everything? Did we forget anything? And it always takes longer than you think to unpack and repack and get everything in and out of the car. This way, we're not packing things up. We literally, put the beds up and then we drive and get to our place and we're there. We have everything with us. We don't waste a bunch of time finding things or packing things. And so it feels like it gives us the gift of time back as well.
Yeah. And that was one of my favorite things about traveling across the country anytime is that, and especially today, when you want the safety, this is the safest way to travel, especially with your family, when you want to stay secluded, when you want to stay quarantined and you want to stay away until, we get on the other side of everything that's been going on. But when I think about this, you can just stop at a Gander RV and Outdoor or Camping World, pull into the parking lot, plug it in, and, enjoy.
And we did that.
Exactly. The safety of what it's all about. Like you were saying, saving money, going to an Airbnb, getting a hotel, and you have 5 kids. Now you need 2 rooms. Did you get, who forgot their toothbrush? And what about, it's all right there. Isn't it like a second home? And that's what it always was for us. All my favorites were in there. I knew my favorite food. I always had my coffee creamer. I didn't have to worry about it. It's all there for you.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a little cabinet where all the breakfast things are, so the kids can get up and get their own breakfast. They feel comfort knowing that that's our space. It's not somewhere that we're in and out of. There's not a bunch of explanations that are needed, and it gives all of us more freedom and independence.
I love it.
I really want to know because 3 weeks and getting yourselves into an RV is pretty quick.
Yeah.
We did it in like a week too. So we did it in a week too. We didn't do as much research as you did. But speaking of, what are some of some of the tips for first-time RVers that you would suggest when they're first looking for a new rig or even just getting into this lifestyle?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, RVing is not for everyone. So I would really look and see what your goals are. If you enjoy the outdoors, then that's probably going to be a great opportunity for you. But if you are not someone who likes being outside a lot, probably not great, because the RV is not for people who like to be inside all the time, who like to just stay indoors, because that's not really the point of it. I feel like it's an opportunity to push us outside. Again, we're not spending a ton of time in the RV when we're out and about. It's an opportunity for us to be able to get outdoors. So I'd consider if that's something that is important to your family. And if you connect through being in the outdoors, and I feel like most children do, most children thrive with being outside. I know I've seen my kids come alive with just spending so much time outside together. They've built those relationships with each other. So if that's something that's important to you, then I think this could be a really great option. As you do research, obviously consider, family size, consider what's most important to you in terms of your priorities, like the safety considerations. If you have a vehicle that can tow, if you want the flexibility of a second vehicle while you're in a place. We actually like just having the RV when we drive around places instead of having a second vehicle, because that means we always have all of our stuff with us in case we find somewhere we want to go swim. We have our swimsuits, we have the shower, so that's actually nice. But some people really like to be able to have a second vehicle so that you can go on smaller roads, so you can off-road, things like that. So I would consider what your goals are, what kind of places you like to see as well.
Yeah, Preeti Harbuck, it's been so nice talking to you. Of course, the local Passport family. What are some of the trips that you guys have planned? Because I know, look at your smile and how lit up you are when you talk about being on the road. I love this so much. What are some of the trips that you guys have planned in the next couple of months?
Absolutely. So we're going to be doing some more California exploring. We love our home state. There are just so many places to explore here.
Oh, yeah.
I think we could probably just explore here for the rest of our RV career and be perfectly happy because there are so many amazing places. We actually just went just a couple hours north last week while our kids were on winter break and explored some of the coast there, some of the redwoods. There's so many beautiful things. We're hoping to get to Death Valley and Joshua Tree and explore a little bit in southern Utah as well. We're hoping later this spring.
Just a little side note, if you're heading to Death Valley or Joshua Tree, let's just leave the summer months out of that. Take it from experience. Born and raised in Southern California, but you're right. I'm so glad you said that. And Tiffany, I know you know this. You could just cruise up and down Pacific Coast Highway and look at the amazing coastline that Southern California has to offer and Northern California all the way up and down the coast. It's so beautiful.
It's one of the most breathtaking drives, most definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things that I love the most about I'm a little biased as well. We live in Southern California. Is that you do have the desert, you have the forest, you have the water. So, like you said, there's just so much to explore in the state itself. But as you were also speaking of before as well, there's just so many other unknown parks and national forests that don't really even get the recognition that it deserves, that as you're driving, you can just pull off and be like, oh, that's so interesting. I've never seen, because when we were driving here too, we're like, there's a bunch of trees and all of that stuff. Where exactly are we? And we pulled off and we did a little hike and all that stuff. And that's what's so fun and amazing about this lifestyle.
Yeah, well, we look forward to seeing your next adventures because you have taken us on the most amazing journey with your family, with your pictures, and we're going to go across the country with you even more. So we're going to be paying attention to all those California pictures. Coming up, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a moment, and we want to look at this incredible unit in our partner pick today and take a look at what we have that you are going to show us and walk us through if that works for you.
Awesome. I can't wait.
All right, stick around. The Ultimate RV Show National Tour Partner Pick will continue.
From sunup to sundown, we are designing your next big adventure, building your family vacation, delivering your memories that will last a lifetime. We know it's more than just an RV, which is why we are working around the clock to bring over 80,000 RVs fresh from the factory to our stores, to your driveway or campsite. Built by Americans for Americans and starting at less than $5 per day. Click, call, or visit your local Camping World today.